Hello and welcome to this episode of EduCurious. Today's guest is Brittany Alexander, and Brittany Alexander is currently an assistant principal at our local charter elementary school, Janie Howard Wilson, and she is moving into a new job, assistant principal at Bok Academy North in her spare time, which I don't know how anyone has any spare time in this kind of leadership. She is actually the co-founder and director of Fury Elite Athletics. So welcome, Brittany. I am so glad to have you on the show today.
So happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So I want to hear all about you. Just give us a little overview about you, where you are at this point in life, what you like, just a little snippet.
I am a believer. I believe that I am where I am because of the goodness and grace of God. I'm a wife and mother, and a community service advocate. I am an educator and a mentor and someone that loves deeply. My journey to where I am now, actually, my first educational role was at the sheriff's office, Polk County Sheriff's Office, where I was the customer care instructor. And if you know anything about adult learners, they are just like kindergartners if you're talking about things that they're not really interested in. So I had to teach deputies how important it is to treat every person, whether they have violated the law or not, as a customer, and how being a good person is a representation of our slogan at the Sheriff's Office, Pride and Service. And so that was my first jump into education, and I realized I like teaching people. And so then I moved over to Bartow High School, where I started my official educational journey as an educator, as the biology teacher there, and I loved it. And then I had the opportunity to come back to Lake Wales, where I was born and raised, graduated from Lake Wales High School, and I've been here ever since, just paving the way for our kiddos. I love what I do. I've had this mantra: I could take my talents anywhere, but why take it anywhere when this is where I was grown? This is where they invested in me. And so I want to do the same for my community.
And you don't just give back in the classroom or in leadership capacity, you're giving back with all of your community service and community organizations. So tell me a little bit about Fury Elite Athletics, please.
So Fury Elite Athletics actually started off as Lake Wales Fury Elite. My son, when he was 5 years old, and a fun fact for our watchers, Miss Johnson was my son's third grade teacher, and he loves her to this day and talks about his great time in third grade with Miss Williamson and Miss Johnson. When he was 5 years old, he wanted to play football, and I'm not the kind of parent that would just drop him off. And I actually was involved in like youth sports when I was growing up, and so I'm like, I'm out there, and I have my little daughter, and she saw these cheerleaders, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna drop my kid off. The guys are not going to let me play or coach football. So I decided to coach cheer. My mom was a cheer coach and also a cheerleader. And so that season that my son was 5, I was coaching the cheerleaders, and my daughter loved it. She loved it. She wanted to cheer, but she hated the sun. She hated the sun. She did not like to be hot. So she would do like a couple flips and then, mommy, where's the tent? Where's the ice? Can we go home? And because she loved it so much, I decided, you know what? Let me do this for her. And I started a team for my daughter that was competitive cheer that allowed her to compete in multiple competitions, but was on the inside where there was air conditioning. And Lake Wales High School has been a great support at helping us to host the showcases every year. And so that's how that birthed off of the love for my daughter. And then it developed into a passion for me. I love the connection that I made with my cheerleaders that year. And a lot of them wanted to continue doing it, but they also didn't like the sun, and neither did I. And so I really enjoyed the ability to go to my son's game and leave afterwards and not have to stay all day. And so then we took off from there, and then we added on basketball and track, and just trying to reach as many kids as possible. And so it birthed from cheerleading, and then it led to sports. And we just had a team come back from Fort Lauderdale that played in this competition, or this tournament, and Balling on the Beach was huge. They're 40-court gym, and the kids did amazing. My son's team went all the way to the championship and lost by 1 point. And so he's back in the gym trying to figure out, how do I get better mentally? How do I get better physically? So that he has that competitive edge. And so that's how it was birthed. And it's something that me and my husband have bonded over. It supports my marriage, supports our family time. Being in leadership is really hard to make purposeful time. And so with our kids being involved, it was a way for us to stay connected as a family.
What a beautiful story. And you saw a need. You saw a need with a cheer indoor. And then as each sport has grown and your kids have different interests, how do you translate that into your leadership style when you see a need? How do you go in and tackle that need?
This actually was God sent. Being the founder, co-founder, director, coach, mentor outside of school has really helped with my connection with students in school. And so they understood that, if I have to call Miss Alexander, if I have to call Coach Bobby about behavior in school, then they would lose out on opportunities outside of the classroom, or that impacted their opportunities outside of the classroom. We've had great support from the community to help sponsor some students, because some families that we service are not able to pay the registration fees that allow us to ensure them to get the proper uniforms and have the kids looking well. And I use this slogan from Deion Sanders: if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, they pay good. And so I always try to make sure that my athletes look good, because then they start to feel good, and then that competitive edge comes out. But it bleeds over into the classroom, and it makes that connection. I have tons of our parents come in to, volunteer. But what's really, really nice, especially here at Janie Howard, is that my teachers here on this campus love their students. And with me having that program, it was a bridge for them to see their students outside of the classrooms, to build relationships with their students outside of the classrooms. So it's not uncommon to see teachers at the games. I recall you coming to a game to support Adrian and some of the classmates. So it really is important that we have people in the community that saw that need, along with myself and my husband, that give our time because we love our kids, but it does bridge over into their classroom and how they perform. They understand we check grades. I will pull report cards several times during the season. They have to turn them in at our end of the year ceremonies, where we, recognize the champions. A part of that is an academic award. And so the parents have to turn those in, and we verify that they have AB. I know sometimes parents will say, well, hey, they didn't get all A's, but they got 1C, but they worked really hard. And I want to acknowledge those students as well. And so we make time for that, because it's really important that they understand that I'm trying to develop the whole kid. And that's one of the most important things. I was an athlete myself, and being a part of this program and starting this program and maintaining this program is to develop the whole kid. I want to develop good humans. And when you do that, it helps for all of us. It's good for all of us, because one day we got to retire and we want good people out here.
Now, what about you have experience with teaching adult learners, but now that you're in leadership, how does this team mentality, this empowering others, this recognizing individual success translate into you as an assistant principal?
I'm growing up as a learner. I was not a group project person. I hear the word group project and I was like, give me the work and I'll just let you put your name on it. I'll do all the stuff. I'll do all the research. I'll type it up. I'll put the presentation together, and you can just put your name on it, just because I just felt like if I do it, I know it's done right. And then going into leadership, my mind shifted completely. In order for the larger thing, the system, to be successful, you have to develop leaders. And so I walked into a room as a dean and realized that I was probably the smartest person in the room, and not off of intellect, but because I had done all the work. I built all the lesson plans. I built the labs for all the disciplines, and I understood the ins and outs of the standards. And they were looking at me and waiting for me to tell them, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is what, and I'm stealing their opportunity to grow as a leader instructionally in the classroom. And that shifted the way I thought about group projects. It shifted the way that I changed my leadership style. And it really is important to me to make sure that I am not the smartest person in the room, that everyone that is around me is the smartest people in the room, and they have the resources and the intellect and the information and the tools and the skills to be successful. And so while I was an athlete and I understood the importance and the power of teamwork, translating that over into my career has been a game changer for me, because I truly believe that with a positive collaborative effort, we get the biggest bang for the buck. And it's not just for us, we're doing this for kids. And if we can't work together and build each other up and find each other's weaknesses and give positive, constructive feedback on how to be better, then we're robbing kids. And I started this by saying that I'm a believer first. I want to live my life pleasing to God. And one of those parts in my leadership is making sure that I am helping everyone around me become better, encouraged, and feel that their voice matters.
So, in your educational career, what are some of the things that you are really proud of? Maybe some of the accomplishments. Starting an organization is huge, but what about the little parts along the way that have prepared you to be who you are right now, sitting in your seat?
I think having amazing leadership examples have been a really important piece of who I am today. I've had the opportunity to work under Sheriff Grady Judd. And if you're from Polk County, you know how everyone feels about him. For the most part, he is fair and consistent. And I say, you know what? I want to take that with me. I want to always be fair and consistent. I've had the opportunity to work under Donna Dunson, who is a visionary and an innovative thinker. And if there isn't a box, we build it. And if there is one, we break it and we figure out all the parts. I've had the opportunity to work under Anisha Rand, who is one of the most powerful analytical minds I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And I say, you know what, I want to be like him. When I think about numbers and when I think about the little pieces that are so important in order to keep the thing working well. I've had the opportunity to work for Anna Barcenas, who has the heart of gold. I could cry thinking about her. She made sure that she saw her team and that she listened to us and that she took that feedback. And so all these opportunities, I've had the opportunity to work under Kim Griffiths, and she is phenomenal, so knowledgeable, works so hard at making sure that she understands the thing and does the thing well all the time. And I thought I was one of the most hardworking people I've ever met. And then I met Kim and I was like, oh, I met my match. I met my match because she believes in working hard every single day. And I have to remind her it's something that people would do for me. You have to take a break. You have to take a break, Brittany. You have to kind of smell the roses. And it's so nice that I get to be that for Kim sometimes and say, you got to take a break because working hard is phenomenal. But it's so nice when I get to see her step back and look at what we've accomplished together, how some of the visions that she's had come to fruition. So I've been truly blessed in that way to have some amazing leadership in my corner to guide me through how to become an amazing leader for the people that work underneath us in terms of management. We're all on the same level in my mind because we all contribute to make sure that all our kids have what they need. And so taking little pieces of all of those individuals has helped culminate Brittany Alexander as a leader. And I try really hard to exemplify all of those attributes. And then one of the other people is Mr. Chris Reams. People don't talk about him often, but he was actually an assistant principal when I was at the high school as a student. And one of the things that I've always loved about him is accountability. He would always hold us, no matter how much he loved us. And he recognized that we were kids, but accountability. And he did it with love. So it was always, if you did something, you have to be responsible for those choices. But I love you anyways, and I'm going to love you through it, and I'm going to make sure that you learn from it. And that was another thing that I've taken from phenomenal leaders that I've had the opportunity to learn from and work with.
What do you think in this collection of really great leadership qualities and attributes that are some that you really do well with? What are the things that if you could describe yourself, you'd say, you know what, that's my thing. I really do. I'm my very best at this.
I am would characterize myself as a warm strict. And so where I believe strongly in accountability, because I think those are where the most powerful lessons are learned. But I believe that I do it with a heart and I make sure that people understand that that connection for correction is super important to make the whole thing better. I think I do really, really well with that with my students. I do really well with that in terms of leadership. And then I also think that because I was so fortunate to see Donna's leadership style as a visionary, that really is something that I have held to in making sure that I'm always thinking of outside of the box. I think that is why Fury Elite has been so successful is because I have always tried to think of it outside of the box. How do I provide this extreme and amazing and just if you talk to any of my athletes, they're like, this is like one of the best experience. How do I provide this experience but keep it affordable? How do I take the kids to Tennessee and these different areas that they've never been before? And in my mind, I'm thinking I'm actually creating background knowledge for them. So as they read stories, they can make connections about the places that they've been. And so that visionary piece is something that I'm really grateful for because I had it modeled for me. And I think I've always had that piece of me. But I think those are my really strong parts as a leader. I am a visionary. And I try to be innovative, but I also believe in accountability and systems and doing it with love.
Now, along your educational journey, and especially in leadership in recent times, what are some of the challenges that you face that on the other side of things, you're like, oh, wow, I really learned from it. But, while you're walking through it, it's like, oh, so hard.
Transitioning from teacher, where I was only concerned with my four walls and who got to go in them, to moving into the dean position, the dean of science, and now kind of being responsible for what's happening in multiple classrooms, and not in terms of administration, but making sure that our teachers were connected with resources and that they were able to use them effectively, that we had organized systems within our department. So biology, chemistry, physics, and that students were getting a great learning experience through science, which is really important to me because I think if you fix science, that you fix everything else because it is a culmination of your content, your reading, your math. And so that was really important to me. But all those little nuances were very important in terms of helping our students become thinkers. You know what I mean? I always tell my kids, if you left out of my classroom being a biologist, that was a bonus. If you left out of my classroom being a thinker, then I've done my job. And so that's really the really important thing for me, is to develop students and leaders to do the same thing. And so that was a challenge for me because I would have all these innovative thinking and try to create these lesson plans that were out of the box, but I can't control what's going on in another classroom, and I couldn't control like how, the idea that I had for the chemistry lab to come out in the classroom, because I wasn't the teacher over it. And so I found that when I came into administration, that me and Kim we would springboard different ideas about, how this lesson should look, or, what data we would hope to produce from this. But we're not in the classrooms every single day with those kids all day long. And so that was a challenge because we knew what we wanted to do and how we wanted it to come out. And it really is being able to communicate that with the teachers, with the students, on how do we build this together, and not be the person that has the idea but can't translate it to those that are actually going to implement it. And so I think over the last 3 years working with Kim and in this leadership role, that we have learned, and also as the Dean of Science and working in guidance at Lake Wells High School, that I've learned how to take the idea that's in my head and communicate it to those so that it has a greater output for the students, and not just the kids that were in my four walls, or the students that were on my roster, or the kids that are in, the top teachers' classrooms, that the newest teacher on the campus had the ability to say, this is the plan that my administration has, and these are the questions that I need to ask. I feel comfortable coming into their offices to ask those different questions. But initially that was a struggle for me, I think, because I had this great idea and I'm like, if you just let me do it, then it'll come out right. And it was translating what was in my mind, that it would have a greater impact on the entire school community.
That sort of ties back into the group project mentality. And I'm right there with you on that.
That's always like a work in progress.
Yes, empowering others, seeing a vision, and that is something you do practice with both sports and within leadership. So, as you transition from the elementary assistant principal to a middle school assistant principal, what are some things that you're looking forward to, and what are some things that you're like, I know I need to really jump in because it's unknown?
I'm super excited for this opportunity. One, because I have taught and worked at the high school level with seniors. They're on their way out into the real world. And then I've had this unique and a special opportunity to see them in their first steps into, traditional education as a kindergartner. And so middle school is uncharted ground for me, but I know where they're coming from and I know where they're going. And so I'm really excited about going into middle school to really bridge what I've learned in those two areas, to really understand. I understand why they're struggling with reading or with this subject, because this is typically what they struggle with in elementary school. And so these are some places that I can really look into some intervention and look at, some specialized instruction at the middle school level, because now I know where they're going. And I know that pathway that we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to take advantage of. So if they want to go career academy pathway, or if they want to go IB, or if they want to go dual enrollment, I understand that as a guidance counselor, as a teacher, but I understand that that foundation that may be either solid or a little shaky. and where we can put those interventions and the supports in the middle school level to really bridge that gap so that we see this continuum of students just having the opportunity to be successful and be supported all the way through. So I'm really, really excited about that, to really bridge what I've learned from those two areas of my career.
And that was one of the takeaways when I was talking to our upcoming new superintendent about bridging those gaps, making them a full system instead of little micro systems
Hmm.
working autonomously. It's all going to be cohesive. I think that is so important.
Yes.
Now, you've had experience in IB from the high school,
Hmm.
also at elementary. Can you talk a little bit about your take on the IB program, the young years, the middle years, the high school IB? Like, it's super cool. And sometimes there's a lot of nuance and questions around it.
I was introduced to IB at Lake Wells High School. When I did my interview, I interviewed for a standard biology position. And Anissa ran to this day, I'm like, oh, you stressed me out. He said, well, I only have this many units for biology. Are you interested in teaching chemistry? And maybe some pre-IB? I was like, I don't know, but sure, because I want to come back to Lake Wells High School. And I always love a challenge. And so I taught the pre-IB biology, which is essentially this, you follow the state standards, and then, but you're preparing them. So you kind of give a preview of the depth of knowledge for the DP or the diploma program at the IB level at the high school. And I fell in love with IB. I fell in love with the framework. And over my time working as an IB teacher, because I ended up taking over the DP program for biology, I understood, and I tell people, and it doesn't matter who asks this question, IB is not for the smart kid. That's what people think. Oh, it's the International Baccalaureate program, and you must be Ivy League in this pursuit. No, IB is for the kid that wants to work hard, that is willing to develop some grit, that is willing to develop their thinking skills, that have that grit. And then at the elementary school level, Smart Kid is for all kids. It is a way of thinking to develop an entire student. And so we're not just focusing on your math ability, and we're not just focusing on your science ability, your reading ability. We're focusing on your ability to think and to take ownership of your learning. And so I will tell you, even if I'm not in an IB school or an IB role, I am an IB educator because I truly believe in that framework of thinking and that framework of developing a student to be curious at all times and to be analytical at all times and to give back at all times, that there is a responsibility, an inherent responsibility to give just as much as you take and to love just as much as, you get upset. And that is what IB is about. It really is about developing the student, the teacher, the educator, the community, and that we are all connected and we all have this responsibility to make everything better because we're here. So that's IB in a nutshell.
Talk about, you said growth, developing the whole person, the educator, the leader. I want to hear about what's your idea for how we can serve this next wave of growth in the Lake Wales community.
I think you said it best. We have to figure out a way in this system that was born on the notion of autonomy, where each school, and I think I was in a meeting and they would describe our system currently, the structure currently, as more of like a university system. And so you have, you got FSU, you got Florida State, you got the University of South Florida, and everybody has their own programming and everyone has their own little niche and their own little idea of how they want to develop students on their campus. And I think that is amazing. I think what we need to do as a Lake Wales charter school system is really work together and have some more conversations on what is everybody offering and why, and how do we work together to support our community, and that is reflective of the needs of our community, and that we're working together a little bit more instead of being some island sometimes. I think we do really well in some areas and not so well in others. And I think that is a resounding agreement amongst our system. And so I'm really hopeful for our new superintendent that comes in with new perspectives and new experiences to really help build those bridges and those connections where students are leaving Bok North and Bok South and going to the high school, really having a idea of what they want to do, and those pathways are there, that they leave our elementary schools with the foundation that they need, and that they're able to migrate through our system seamlessly because we have that connectiveness, we have those conversations that we share, and we support each other. And I think if we do that as a system, if we do that as a community, not just Lake Wells Charter, because I think conversations with Spook Hill and conversations with McLaughlin and conversations with Victory Ridge and conversations with Candlelight, if we do that as a community, we serve Lake Wells. And I think at the heart of Lake Wells Charter, that was the notion, to serve the students and families of Lake Wells. And so I'm really hopeful that we'll get there. We're always going to be a work in progress, but I love this town. I love this system. And I know that we have the ability to do that if we work together.
And what does it look like in your mind for the next 5 years? How are you going to be a part of this growth and this opportunity and this serving the students and families of Lake Wales?
So I'm going to piggyback on IB. One of our learner profiles is being open-minded. And I'm going to push that narrative of being open-minded. I think we have gotten comfortable in some places, and we're not as open-minded to some change that is coming. You look around in Lake Wales, the structure of Lake Wales is a lot different. We have a lot more people moving here, and we have, different cultures, different information, different experiences coming here. Having that open mind and being open to those conversations is where I see myself at really listening to learn versus listening to respond or to defend. Because I think sometimes when we're so comfortable and we feel like we have this really great thing, that we're not really open-minded to a new perspective that can make it better. And then we go into this defending what we currently have versus looking at how do we form something new and better with that great foundation of what we already have. And so that's where I see myself through this journey, is making sure that those new perspectives get to come to the surface, that get to be discussed, get to be explored, and hopefully maybe implement it in some capacity to make our system better. Within the middle schools, like I said, I'm taking those two experiences from the extremes, those experiences that I've had, to try to bridge that gap, to have that continuum. I would love to work with Bok South and look at what programs that they're offering at their campus versus what we're offering at Bok North, to see, are there things that maybe you guys should just do this, and we market it that way, and we do this over here and we market it that way, and so we're more effective with our resources. And so when we're sending students to Lake Wells High School, that they know what they're getting and what they're getting because we've been so effective with our resources. So being open-minded and implementing those things and having those conversations where I see I will fit in, and then I'm a worker, I'm a doer. So after we have that conversation, I'm like, okay, let's get to work. How do we do it? Let's do it together.
What do you feel like you'd like parents to know and be more aware of? Because it's different when you're on the parent side versus when you're on the inside looking out. Do you have any helpful hints that you'd like to discuss?
So orientation, open house for seniors. And I think every teacher should step out of their box and become a teacher for high school seniors. I just feel like everybody needs that experience. It is amazing to prepare a kid for the next stage of life, where they really have to be responsible. And so at open house, I would always tell my parents, be hover mamas. Don't take your hands off your kids. Okay. They're like, oh, they're a senior now, they got it. No, they don't. They don't know. Be involved, be present, ask those questions. They're a senior in high school, and I want you to ask the same questions that you would ask your kindergartner. What is homework tonight? What does your schedule look like? What are you planning? Be involved. And I mean in your child's education and our system. Ask those questions. Show up to board meetings. Become knowledgeable. And then I challenge our leadership. I challenge our teachers to go out into the community, because sometimes we don't have that connection. And with the climate of the world right now, people are sometimes afraid to come into our schools because they're not sure how they're going to be approached. And so I think one of the things that I would love to see us do is to go into the community, to share the information, to let them know that you are a part of your child's educational pathway. You are a team member with us. And so parents, that is something I really encourage, that you keep your hands on your kids, even if they're a senior in high school. The same thing that you walk them to the door on the first day. Like you get all you stressed out on kindergarten drop off day. And you're like, can I walk them to the class? And you're like, yes, walk them to the class on senior year. Take that picture. because it's so important. It is fleeting, and you want to be involved at every step of the way because they do not know. And as much as they try to bulk the discipline or the structure, they crave it. The kids crave it. They crave knowing what to expect. They crave and they eat it up when they know that they can count on you no matter what. And so that is something that I do that with Fury Elite. And it's really important that I try to keep it affordable and that, we take our kids off, but I want to make sure that there's enough opportunities for parents to be involved because it's nothing like being on the mat for my cheerleaders and looking up and seeing your mama. Like they have that table of judges, but they're really performing for that parent. And so that is really important to me is to make as many opportunities as possible for our kids and our parents to be connected and have those experiences together.
What kind of advice would you have for a young person who's thinking about being an educator as a future career? What would you tell them to give them that push?
That it is difficult and that I would give them the same advice that I've given a lot of people. Figure out what you would love to do for free, and it's just a bonus that you get paid. And that is really important for really smart people because you can typically go into any position and do really well at it, but not feel fulfilled. And so coming into education, I would encourage new teachers, figure out what is it about this job that you would do for free. And if you can't find anything that you would do in this job or this career for free, you shouldn't be here because you're never going to be caught up. There's always going to be a list. There's always going to be something else to do. There's always going to be a kid with, some sort of situation. And so there's always going to be something. And so you need to be able to have something that fills you up that, you know what, even if we have all these things, I would still do this part of it for free. And if because what we need in education is people who have passion, that are driven, that are convinced that their presence makes a difference. And if you don't find a piece of you within this dynamics that you would do for free, and it's just a bonus that you get paid to do it. Like my grandfather was a educator for 30 years. For 29 and a half years, it was just fun. You didn't wake up and go to work, you were going to play every day because it was so filling. And that's how I feel about what we do as educators. I'm having fun every day. There are hard parts of this, but most of this stuff I would do for free. I do it for free outside of here. And so it's just a bonus. And I think if you encourage people to figure out the parts of this, because there are always, no matter what job you go on to, and I've had many, it doesn't matter there's always going to be parts that you just do not like and cannot stand. But there's going to be parts about it that there should be parts that you would just wake up and say, I get to go play today. I get to do something I enjoy. And that's really important. And then on the technical side of it, learn as much as you can, get as involved in as much PD as possible so that your toolbox is filled. And there's many things that you can pull from to be effective in the classroom, building meaningful relationships with your teammates. And so that you can lean onto them and that you can have those perspectives when you're planning out dynamic lessons, building a relationship with your administration so that when you're having a hard time that you can have conversations and say, today I'm having a rough day. One of the things that I really love about Janie Howard this year is we implemented conscious discipline. And it wasn't just for kids, it was also for teachers. And I led those sessions this year where you had to kind of do a self-evaluation of where your brain state is today. Am I in survival mode? And as an administration, have we created an environment that you can communicate that? That you can say, you know what, today I saw this on a YouTuber Facebook where in a marriage, the husband would come home and he would say, I only have 10. And the wife knew I had to bring the 90. And sometimes in education, your teachers are only going to have 15 and you have to bring in the rest. And as a team on your team, you got to bring in the rest, but you have to create that environment where people can communicate that. But then what a dynamic classroom it would be for your kids, your students to come in and say, Miss Alexander, I'm a 20 and I know I got to bring that 80 for them. And that's what we've kind of developed here at our school. And you see it in our numbers that our students are performing extremely well, but they want to be here. I think a big metric that I am very proud of is our attendance rate. We have kids, and that's not a Janie Howard thing. That's the school just education. But kids want to be here. They're happy to be here. And so I think as an educator, a new educator, building those relationships and being a part of positivity on your campus is going to make the difference in a career that you dread and a career that you love.
You mentioned something that you've seen on Facebook or YouTube. So, what are some other resources that you like to stay plugged in to be relevant within this field?
One of the things we did this year, and I think because I'm just an out of the box teacher, you see the Ron Clarks and you just standing on a table, but and really getting their students engaged. And so one of the things we worked on this year was the Kagan strategies, because teachers like, and I've learned this in elementary land. In elementary land, it is different. It is different. And you were an elementary school teacher, but they're these kids, like they're like, and you know their frontal lobe we're still developing, and so they are really curious. And so it's, I understand teachers that want to kind of manage their room where it's not as chaotic, but I say to that, no, it's not chaotic. Let's use some of these strategies and these structures from Kagan. That's what we did this year, that allow it to be a little bit more organized, but let the kids be kids. And so I like to stay plugged in on some engaging and an interactive learning strategies in the classroom that allow students to move and allow teachers to get them out of rows and allow the teachers to allow them to talk to each other. And I know, right? Talk to them, each other, and give them that time to think and share. And so any resource that allows that, I think Kagan is really good for elementary. I really would love for our system to do a dive into that, because kids need to learn those structures on how to have productive conversation and a productive engagement, but also allow the teacher to still teach the lesson, because there's a lot of standards to teach. And not only are we teaching the standards, we're also teaching social emotional regulation. And I think high school teachers, and I will learn shortly, middle school, you don't really teach as much of the social emotional regulation at the high school, because their frontal lobes are a little bit more developed. And so they have some of those natural stop signs that have developed in their brain, like I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that. But at elementary school level, they haven't developed some of those stop signs, and they're running through red lights. And I think that is a really great resource that is very cut and dry and engaging, that I would love our system to dive into. And then being an IB instructor, I love all the resources that are within the IB platform to help teachers develop what's called the ATTs, the approaches to teaching, that allows the teacher to look at strategies to develop social emotional regulation, that allows the student to look analytically at things, that allows the students to think critically about things, to be innovative about things. So I love all of those resources. FLIBS with IB is also, it's a great place to network. So they have these wonderful manuals and all these things, but there is nothing like having a teacher buddy that is teaching something that is very similar to you, that can bring their experiences and what went well and what didn't go well in the classroom, as well as leadership within leadership. I really look forward to our new superintendent really helping to bridge. I think me and you talked about this, having some conversations within leadership so that we can grow professionally, and learn from what Elizabeth Tyler has done that allowed her to be so successful. And some of these others that have, maybe even retired, bring them in so we can pick from their brains to continue some of the success that we've seen within our system.
You mentioned something very important about the learning community and in leadership. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear a lot of times people saying, when I get up higher, I feel more alone or on an island because it's just harder from that vantage point to connect. Where are some resources that you feel like you can go to in leadership to keep that community strong and not feel alone, but to be like, hey, buddy, I went through this too?
So in this current role, and I think this is probably our greatest deficit within our system, is that we are not connected as well. I will say that I am really grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the principalship certification course, where I have the opportunity to talk to some other leaders now and get some experiences. So I'm really hopeful that our new superintendent, kind of prioritizes development for the administration of our system, because we are limited. And with all of the vast or not resources, but responsibilities that we have, it's been really difficult to connect to some other resources. I'm very grateful that I do have Kim Griffiths, because she is so knowledgeable. And so we work really well as a team, and the things that we don't know, we've conquered together. the things that we weren't very knowledgeable about, we've conquered together. And so it's really powerful when you have a strong administrative team that looks at the challenges that are before you and recognize that we don't have as many resources as maybe our sponsor district or some neighboring counties, and how do we uniquely attack those things together? Because I honestly feel that is one of the deficits that we have within our system is growing our administration. One of my decisions to kind of explore middle school is to get some more experience as a leader, to have a new perspective on how to really lead our schools, because I don't care what school I'm in or what level I'm in as long as I'm serving the students of Lake Wales. But to get the opportunity to put more tools in my toolbox, I think is one of the driving factors that I've had and what I'm really excited about for my new transition. And so I really look forward to us really working together as leadership to kind of develop some opportunities for the administrative team within Lake Wales Charter.
Do you have any closing thoughts or anything that popped up that you're like, let me make sure I say this before we wrap up?
I want to say thank you to this opportunity. I want to encourage you to always be a butterfly and always be open and always walk in every day with a new perspective on how do I make this world better and this community better, even if it's just one classroom. And I think that our system is uniquely placed here with some amazing families, and that I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I get every day to serve the community of Lake Wales. And so I don't take it for granted. I'm very grateful. And I think that we have some amazing times ahead. And I look forward to working with you, along with all the other administrative teams and teachers and students and community members, to really make sure that we're giving our absolute best to the students and families of Lake Wales.
Brittany, that was a perfect closing to this episode. So, whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We'll see you next time.